January 2020, a great time of change. A time where Americans were arguing issues such as how many guns are too many on college campuses. Global tensions were rising between nations, as they seem to always do, with an entire nation's mourning from the loss of a national treasure, while a mega millionaire, TV hosting, pageant owning, Cheeto ran the world's wealthiest and most powerful nation in a manner that got him impeached as he brokered peace deals of historic proportions. A time of complexity, some may say. All this took place while potentially one of the world's greatest challenges to the existence of the human race made contact in one of the state's oldest states, New York. 2020 was the beginning of a very challenging year. As the epicenter of COVID, New York was rife with challenges related to handling such a disease. Being a megacity and tech hub with the 24th world's largest port and the 44th most densely populated area, the sheer amount of activity that happens within the borders of the land makes it difficult to manage such a task. And one of the worst spots to introduce the disease. To get through such a time, New York City's government decided to take matters into their own hands, closing off all bars and restaurants, implementing a pause program on non-essential work, beginning a 4-phase plan to trickle business operations back to normality, mass vaccinations, masks, social distancing, spreading propaganda, mandatory homeschooling programs, and much, much more. Amongst all the chaos, New York's governing body attempted to use this information they received from institutions such as New York's Health Department and the CDC in a manner to maintain prosperity within the region, considering the people's needs and the practical implications of how the spread of the disease worked. But there was one policy that seemed to buck the trend more than any other. Though not as controversial as mandatory vaccination, or as invasive as shutting down non-essential businesses. The policy that is most questionable with the goals of protecting the citizenry was, drumroll please, New York City's outdoor dining policy. Don't believe me? Let me explain. As a step to stop the spread, we were informed by scientific institutions like the CDC that closed spaces were hotbeds for disease. An observation that has not changed since the idea of quarantining people came about during the Middle Ages, as open spaces significantly reduced the likelihood that such an event would take place. In accordance to this information, Cuomo and friends put into place a plan to use this information as part of our fight against the disease. Outdoor dining areas that can be placed either on the sidewalks or along the curb in front of a business owner's property. An area surrounded by barriers to protect the customers of the establishment. Reflective tape strapped to the side of the barriers for maximum visibility during the night. 6-foot social distances between individual tables. Heaters for potentially cold weather, ramps for the disabled, and ample space between the dining area and the public necessities like fire hydrants and crosswalks, snow alerts, grants for the needy, a process to remove unused spaces, all inspected by professionals, and expanding unemployment benefits to boot. A plan that was considerate of the needs of the restaurants, as revenues of the industries took a major hit in accordance to people's hesitancy to go out and eat, a method that had the potential to keep people safe from disease, a means that had the potential to bring life to the local atmosphere as people were encouraged to decorate these spaces, catch some fresh air as they eat and enjoy the scenery. Wait, what's that? So apparently the end result of this program was sheds that were virtually indistinguishable from their indoor counterparts, which made the positive disease slowing effects shown in research, null and void. I imagine the development of these outdoor dining structures went a little bit like this. In the beginning, there was compliance. The barriers were low. The roofs were open. The structures were maintained, decorated, and well kept. All was well at this time. That was till we had the owners of these locations notice something. It was the end of the winter, going into the spring. From here, I imagine the design process looked something like this. Let's raise those barriers. Customers do not deserve to weather freezing winds. Yes, sir. While we are at it, winter does exist, and here it gets cold. Very cold. Let's install a roof so we decrease the damage that snow can cause. Makes sense. Oh yeah, this is New York. Locked windows and doors. Genius. And just for comfort, let's add in cooling and heating to be used when the time is appropriate. Seems good enough. Let the outdoor feasts begin. With these outdoor sheds, the ability to curb the spread of COVID, calculated by top researchers, were null and void. What was not null and void was the 12,500 restaurants that participated in this experiment, or the estimated $1,050 fee to start up this operation alongside the $525 annual fee, bringing in an estimated $26 million in revenue per year straight to the pockets of bureaucrats and compliance officers, and will only be increasing with time because this policy as of recently became permanent. Nor the estimated $11.5 million in buying and building materials and maintaining the property, all within an industry that is notoriously cutthroat, has declining profits during this time, follows a power law distribution, a common occurrence through most industries, meaning the majority of these business owners are treading very thin ice when it comes to staying open, with weird side effects associated with such an event, such as an increase in traffic rates and noise pollution around these local businesses, higher crime rates, graffitis, homeless squatters, and a couple of reported fires. This predicament is a prime example of how policy does not always follow the science. Even in theory, the implementation of governing principles that is supposed to mesh well with our everyday life is not as direct as even the most benevolent social planner has plans for, as implementations of these processes relies on the cooperation and coordination of multiple institutions which people work under. If one fails to faithfully engage in any collectivized process, the entire project is at risk of failure, as the rule-breaking participants becomes the standards of conduct. Because the people who create these rules are different from the people who enforce it, and those who enforce it are different than those who are expected to work within the bounds of it. And the ones who are expected to stay within the bounds of it have little incentive to do so. Policy that has the potential to help the public at large also has the potential to be twisted, misunderstood, or ignored. Hopefully, we can remember that the next time an event like this occurs.